from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased joining me, Juliette Denny. Juliette, the way I love to do it is I keep it to my guests to introduce themselves because I know no one else can talk really about someone else better than themselves. So the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Well, Mehmet, thanks very much for having me on. Very much appreciate it. My name is Juliette Denny, and at the moment I wear 3 different hats. So I am still involved in a company called Growth Engineering, which has been around now for 20 years. And we focus very much on helping large corporates deliver learning solutions to their teams worldwide. So our clients are people like Apple, L'Oreal, these kind of folks who are looking to do something kind of gamified and social with regards to how they deliver out learning. So that company is a kind of learning management system. We also have learning apps, and we also have authoring tools as well. So that company's 20 years. I can't believe it. I cannot believe, how quickly that time has flown by. But yeah, 20 years we were in March, and still, kicking ass and trying to, change the way corporate learning works. But my new startup is a company called Iridescent Technologies. And we are in the process of launching a new kind of learning companion called Zavmo AI. So it's due to come out at the end of next month. And what we're really trying to do with learning is really kind of break down the going from one to many. So typically what would happen, a teacher would stand out in class and basically, would deliver a lesson to a one-to-one. So this applies for e-learning as well. So you don't build it once and then basically it gets delivered out to everybody. The idea with Zavmo AI is it's individual conversations, and I'll go into that a little bit more. But it's just been completely fascinating. And then the final thing that I'm doing is it's bringing out a book called The Learning Revolution, which is again coming out in a couple of months. And so very exciting and a brand new challenge for me. I've never written a book before, but just talking about how learning will be affected by, the coming new wave. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. And again, thank you, Juliette, for being with me here today. Now, something in some situations I'm curious about, because I spent a little bit of my time during my career in that space in academia, but for you, it was more into an L&D. And when I shifted, companies across corporations, it was a major department, when it comes to building, course materials, any learning material for people who would work inside the organization. And to be frank with you, it's not that easy task. And this is very complicated. So out of curiosity, Juliette, what brought you and attracted you to be in that domain?
Yeah, so learning and development, it was a bit by accident, to be honest with you. So this is obviously a long time ago. So cycle back, 20 years ago. I started my career in sales, and my first role was in selling box software. I then my husband and I moved because we were doing our postgrads at Harvard. So we then moved to the Boston area, and I joined a .com startup again in a kind of business development type of role. And I really enjoy, business development, but I knew that when we came back to the UK, I wanted to basically have a technology company. I was absolutely transfixed by this idea that, and I guess it was because I was in box software, which obviously if you make a, if there's a bug or something like that, then you have to, put a patch on it and it's a complete nightmare. I was completely transfixed by this idea that, You had a set of code, it was hosted on the internet, and you could basically deploy on demand. I was just like, that is just insane. Build it once, sell it, you know. So I came back to the UK very, very clear that I wanted to build a SaaS software company. And in order to sort of kind of get into the market, and because I've been involved in the dot-com boom and bust, I started doing a lot of consultancy with banks and VCs, looking at their technology portfolio and then basically making recommendations as to whether they were likely to be able to hit their targets or not for further round of funding. So it was a kind of role where it was like, is the technology ready for commercialization? And or if it was ready for commercialization, what did they need to do to move from kind of a tech founder mentality and a sort of a technical focus, product building focus into, you know, the commercialization phase? And so through that, there were lots of problems that were identified in terms of, you know, understanding commercial process, but then also the skills base you need to go out and sell your product. And so what I started doing there was that I got a developer and, you know, we started coding up, you know, ways to automate this. So if I had, you know, looking at their processes and then delivering content on the back of that. And then from that morphed the growth engineering, you know, the growth engineering, you know, platform that you kind of see today. Now, I think what was really interesting is at the time, because we were delivering out commercial people, we really needed to make the learning experience as fun as possible. So very quickly, you know, we had things like gamification and social. And so because of that, we were able to, you know, attract some really big clients quite quickly to the company and then, you know, grow as fast as we did. And so far, I think we've won about 160 global awards. You know, we've worked with, and we still do work with, you know, some of the biggest companies in the world. Because I think what we do is just quite unique. It's very, very learner focused. When the learning management market first came into evolution, it was very much about reporting, like what people did. And so the quality of the learning wasn't really that important. And so what we really tried to do is really kind of flip that on the head and say, look, learning is all about the learner. It's only, you know, only going to get behavior change if the knowledge that you're delivering to the learner sticks. So how are we going to do this? And so, you know, our mission is very much to use, you know, brain science and neuroscience in order to, you know, lift the quality of the learning experience.
Absolutely, you know, fantastic journey, I would say also as well. Now, one term you used, and you know, I'm familiar with it, but I'm gonna ask a little bit to maybe explain it very shortly, which is gamification in learning, right? So, first, what is it, like in a simple term? Second, why is it important, you know, to incorporate, you know, gamification in a company learning? And maybe you have seen it from both sides, Juliette. So because you just mentioned, you know, you work with big names like Apple, L'Oreal, and others. And at the same time, you know, I'm curious to know if like such techniques like gamification can fit even like smaller companies, maybe even startups.
So first question, what is gamification? So gamification is different to game-based learning. So game-based learning is turning learning into a game. Gamification is using gaming mechanics, things like streaks, points, XP, levels, leaderboards, peer-to-peer battles. Those are gaming mechanics to make the learning experience more interesting and more exciting. So it's quite difficult for a company to turn every single piece of learning into a game because it's, by definition, it can be quite expensive. Not now with AI, not now with my new company, but you know, in the past it was. E-learning can be very, very linear, and there's a beginning, in the middle, and end, and you have to outline the learning objectives. Then you need to, you know, meet the learning deliverables. The learner need to meet the learning deliverables, and that can be quite complicated to put in the game. Not impossible. So, you know, I'm currently working on a project with Moody's, which is very, very, very like that. So it's not impossible. It's just very high performance, very high, high production values. So gamification is basically using these gaming mechanics, which can be embedded onto a platform so that any piece of learning that you put onto the platform is by its nature gamified. You are giving out XP, streaks, whatever it might be, in order for when the learner does something. And with regards to the final question, can gamification be used by smaller companies? Of course, because we see gamification in things like Duolingo or, even Zavmo, the Chinese shopping app. So, gamification is just a mechanic, and it's used by individuals all the time. So yes, is the reality. Yeah.
Cool. That's good to know, Juliette. Now, one thing every time you mentioned, I see, like you are getting excited, and of course you're building something around it. Transitioning to AI powered learning, right? So tell me a little bit, walk me through when exactly you felt, okay, now it's time to take this track, and what makes you excited about, embedding AI with learning and development?
So I really love this question because it stems from really me being a little girl and my learning experience. So the reason why I am so fascinated and interested in learning is because I'm dyslexic. My kids are dyslexic and ADHD. And I have always felt that I did very, very badly at school. So, I was, didn't make it, past my sort of high, didn't make it through high school. Eventually, very, very slowly, I managed to sort of make it up and ended up, studying incredibly hard, at Harvard Night School. And so was able to get, my qualifications through Harvard. But I think for a lot of people, they are locked out of education. And I feel like that is a burning injustice in my soul. So I feel that everybody on this planet has the capacity to, achieve extraordinary things if they are taught in a way that works for them. So if you are dyslexic, you have, by definition, short-term memory. I have short-term memory, which means that, learning by rote does just not work for me, right? It just doesn't work for me. And people are born curious, right? Every human has the capacity to learn and flourish. Curiosity is, ongoing burning curiosity is one of those things that basically keeps us from aging, And so my passion is not necessarily for technology or for AI. My passion is for how do we get technology and now AI to deliver the learning experience so vastly better so that every individual can be inspired to basically deliver their best life, to design the life that they want. And that's really where iridescent technology, comes in. So when you ask me why did you suddenly change from gross engineering to iridescent technology? Very simply because I wanted a company that was born out of AI. So looking at the power of what AI can, achieve in terms of large language models and knowing what I know about brain science and how we curate curiosity and excitement for learning and how we get people to engage in investing in themselves as a habit, I was like, AI can deliver that. So it wasn't that I was drawn to AI because of some technical curiosity. I was drawn to AI because my burning passion is to leave the world with a better, education system than it currently does have now. Now, what I am not saying is that, those individual teachers that inspire and basically, and I had those individual teachers in my life that basically said, no, Juliette, you can do it. Let's just, with a bit of patience, with a bit of you can get there. But what I'm saying is by using AI, we can have a personal learning companion that can help us from the get-go. And using all those powerful techniques that teachers do already have and know, and embed that into the large language models to deliver something, really extraordinary in terms of a learning experience.
I love this, Juliette, because, this is a discussion that always even I have it with my own daughter, like about she keeps asking me why, they assume that everyone in the class, they will react to a lesson the same way, or everyone in the class will understand certain material and like the same on the same level. And even myself, of course, like I was always feeling, okay, some people they might be good, for example, at math, and some people are not. But at the same time, we get all the same materials in the school. To your point, like not all the teachers have the patience, then not all of them they have the will to go and go the extra mile. I can't blame them, of course, because at my time, we were like 25 plus people in the class. So you can imagine we're like a little bit crowded in the place where I was born and raised. So I'm loving this because I can see, Juliette, that AI can, to your point, customize the learning experience, right? So let's say if I get it right from you, so the AI assess my capabilities, assess the way I can understand and process, new things, and based on that, it will build for me maybe a learning path. Is this exactly what you're talking about, Juliette? Like, feel free a little bit to. I want you to explain it a little bit more. If there's
Okay.
if there's something patented or something, okay, I can understand. But I love to hear more about the details.
Fantastic. Well, it's my favorite subject, so no problem at all. So we have what we call a 4-step process. Okay, we call it the 4D process. Okay, so the first one is discover. Okay, so one of the things in order to provide a personal, engaging learning conversation, we need to understand you. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to discover who you are. So in a corporate setting or a professional setting, this might be, tell me a little bit about your role. Tell me about how long you've been in that role. Tell me about the company that you work for. Tell me about the values that you have. Tell me about the challenges that you have in work. Tell me about the strengths and weaknesses. So in the real world, the way we would do that is training needs analysis. You would sit down with somebody from HR and they would go through and they would talk to you in exactly this way. And together you would discover your ideal career path or your ideal learning pathway to get you to your career goals. The next thing, so while you're going through this discovery process and Zavmo's asking you lots of questions, Zavmo's also trying to understand the next bit, which is discuss. Okay. So the next bit, when you are presented with a curricula of learning, is habit forming. Okay. So in the discuss phase, what Zavmo is doing is Zavmo is saying, right, you've just said, Juliette, that you want to move from, a SaaS company and you want to start an AI company. And you want to learn about AI, and you want to learn about AI to the level that you might get at, let's say, MIT, so degree level 7. You also have also spoken to me in the past that you have challenges in terms of managing large numbers of people, and so we're going to throw in a module on that as well. And then you've said that you would like to complete all of this learning within a year's time. So that will, and you've also said that because you're dyslexic and you don't have really bad short-term memory and you're slightly on the ADHD spectrum as well. So you don't like large chunks of learning. You also want to learn 10 minutes no longer than 10 minutes in a 10-minute burst. So that will mean, Julia, that you need to check in with Zavmo, with me as your learning companion, at least every sort of 10 minutes. So that discuss phase is about agreeing what your habits are going to be like ongoing in order for you to complete what you said that you want to do. And that's really important because in learning at the moment, you don't really have the choice of learning what you have to learn. It's told to you that you have to learn it. Even in a corporate setting, they'll go, okay, well, we're doing this sales and marketing management level 4 certificate and you've got to do that. Or you've got to do health and safety and you've got to do it and you've got to do it by this date. Okay. So what that does to the brain is basically the brain goes, this is something I have to do, not something I want to do. So that discuss phase is really important in terms of how you engage and how delighted and excited you are to actually do the learning. Okay. So that's stage 2. The third stage is deliver. So we're now going to go in and Zavmo is going to start delivering your learning experience. Now, from the get-go, okay, we solidly have the, certainly an MVP, we have the commitment that learning is a conversation, okay? So learning should not be, I talk, you receive it, just in the same way as we're doing now. I'd like to think that you're engaged in this conversation because you're asking questions. I'm also asking questions. And together we're able to move towards an understanding of, you were explaining a little bit about how the CTO show happened, and I'm understanding that. And it's a joy for me because I'm curious. I'm in receptor mode. I'm also in, delivery mode. And so that interaction is very important. So Zavmo is not here's a block of text, here's a video. It is a conversation. So Zavmo might say, hey, look, check out this 2-minute video, and then we're going to have a conversation with it. But in the main, it is all conversation. So it is basically what Zavmo uses, the company that you work for, the industry that you work in, the role that you're in, the subject area that you want to study, and it combines all of that into a healthy conversation. And so basically what you will either be talking into Zavmo or you will be typing into Zavmo. Further down the line, we'll be able to do it via video. But this discussion is really important. Now, I briefly mentioned the idea about how learning qualifications work. So in the UK, in India, in the US, across Europe, you have something called, official qualifications frameworks. And so what Zavmo does is pushing out to these official qualification networks to make sure that the overall quality of the learning conversation meets the standards mandated by those national governments. So it's looking in the delivery stage at it's looking at learning objectives. So what are the learning objectives? So what does the curriculum need to teach you, okay, in order for you to understand that module, that certificate, that award, whatever it might be. And then finally, we go to the fourth stage. And the fourth stage is called demonstration. Now, demonstration is really important because when you are learning, you are not really that interested, or most people aren't that interested in the receptors, receiving information. Where learning becomes interesting for the brain, where our synapses start kind of, is in the application. So if you look at learning taxonomy, things like Bloom's taxonomy is really a really good model to understand this. What Bloom's taxonomy shows is we become more committed and more interested in the learning that we're doing, the higher we move up Bloom's taxonomy. So the more we start applying, analyzing, rather than repetition, reinforcement. We're not really that interested in the lower areas of course, we have to do them in order to get the higher areas of the taxonomy. So what Zavmo does in the final stage is Zavmo gets you to demonstrate the learning. Now, how Zavmo does that is through case studies, real world scenarios that again mapped onto everything that Zavmo has come to understand about you throughout the 4D process. The other thing that's really important about how Zavmo asks that question is that it's based on the learning outcomes that are mandated in the qualification that you're studying. So what that allows Zavmo and Iridescent Technology to do is wrap all of that up and say, here, national awarding body, this person has actually successfully achieved the outcome. They've just achieved it in a fundamentally different way. But in terms of, learning credits, learning hours, all of those kind of things that go into recognizing whether you have actually achieved the full spectrum of qualification, it can show that you have. So, we're tremendously excited about, what this can do. There are loads of other things that it does. So it also takes in things like narrative. So one of the ways that humans learn a lot better is through the power of storytelling. And so the more Zavmo understands about you as you move through learning, not only can it weave in, examples from your, the company that you work in and all of that, it can also weave in narrative and story in and around things that you are interested in. So fundamentally making the learning making you more curious about your learning.
That's very interesting, really, really interesting. And I can see it being applied in different areas, like not only for, corporate learning. So it can even help someone, you know, we see sometimes on the internet, like these people who are looking for a change in their career because they discovered after working for a long time, let's say, I'm just giving an example in accounting, that like this is not actually my passion. My passion is X, let's say. And let's say this X is maybe, I don't know, tech. And then they say, oh, we would like to build things, we would love to do that. And then, like we see they put a lot of efforts to go and learn, for example, coding and so on. But maybe with what you are describing, Juliette, it's also give them the credibility of doing this when, for example, changing careers, or maybe if they want to move up in the ladder and, maybe acquire something related to leadership. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like I'm just, trying to, what I like to do usually is when someone is explaining a very exciting thing, where I can put it, like where I can see like immediate use of it. So it looks like something really, really interesting, Juliette. Have you talked to anyone about it? Like how people are getting, excited about something like this?
I mean, I think people are, in the main, they are very excited about it. But of course, it is all very new. And so, although I've seen it on the back end, we're not going to launch beta until the end of July. So we've been working on it, and it will launch at the end of July. I think the idea for most people is utopia for education, because basically what it means is that they will be able to fully unleash their potential. So I think, there's no doubt that it's going to take us, a lot of iterating. And so, having, grown growth engineering over the last 20 years, I have no doubt that we will, come out of the gate with, a perfect product. I would love to think we have. And certainly on the back end, it is looking, what's incredible is that the way it makes you feel. Because when you're talking to Zavmo, it kind of goes at a pace which makes you feel really confident. So you want to move forward more. And that for me, I think is really interesting. So when I'm using other AIs, so I use Gemini a lot. I don't use ChatGPT, but I use Gemini a lot. What I find is that it's kind of like a glorified search engine. Do you know what I mean? It really is. It's like you ask it a question, it does it. It might do it in longer form, but it's not. And I understand automation, and I'm not in that business. Yeah. So I understand that AI does a lot more than just do what I want it to do. But I think when you see it in the context of what we're trying to do it in, that's really what makes me think, wow, what an incredible technology. Because, I think it's the flexibility of it as well, so that you can, ensure that the guardrails around the learning conversation are framed in a way that we already have within the learning and development environment. So because we can use a kind of deep understanding of some of these learning pedagogy models, like Bloom's taxonomy, like the forgetting curve, like open loop theory, like there's lots of these theories that we can basically get Zavmo to understand. Now, because Zavmo understands that, it kind of puts guardrails around the AI to ensure that the experience is one that you continually want to go back to. So it's so easy. It's so interesting to see how you can mold AI. And people all, talk a lot about how scared they are of AI and how it's going to take over the world and all this kind of stuff. But what they don't talk about is the flip side of that, the fact that AI is here to facilitate the absolute best that humans can be. And that's, I think, what the cusp that we're trying to do. We're trying to take this incredibly interesting technology and frame it in a way that really does allow humans to really design their best life. That's really what we're after. We want every single human in the world to be, designing the best life they possibly can through Zavmo at an incredibly low cost price. I mean, that's the other thing. Once it's built, it's not as expensive as putting a teacher in a classroom. It's not as expensive as, signing up for a course online. It should be allow, for social mobility and, all of the things that we want in life, which is, a fairer, better society,
Yeah.
But yeah, fascinating.
You took one question from me. You mentioned something, but I managed to get, the question rebuilt in my mind. So, which is, I think it kind of makes sense also for the audience. You just said something like you don't use ChatGPT. Don't tell me why not yet. You mentioned, and this was my question about, people who are skeptical about AI, right? Now, why, Juliette, we need, and I'm happy you're doing this, because, when we say the word AI nowadays, the first thing that comes to people's mind is just the wrapper on top of the large language model that, for example, OpenAI through ChatGPT, they did, or, Google with Gemini, Anthropic with Claude, right? So I feel there is a need, and correct me again if I'm wrong, and I'm happy you're doing this actually with your current project, is letting people understand that AI is not just ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. Like there's a huge concept of large language model, and this large language model, you can train it the way you want based on some general knowledge. But I would love to hear that from you. First of all, why you don't use ChatGPT, and how we can push more to change this concept. This skeptical look to AI from the mass audience.
Just absolutely brilliant questions, and one that I think about a lot. First of all, let me ask the first question: why don't I use ChatGPT? Very simply, because my company has Google Cloud, and Gemini comes free with Google Cloud. So it does what I want it to do for work. We do not use Gemini, I should say, for building Zavmo. Okay. And just a slight segue, which I would love to share with you, because I think listeners will be very interested. Just quickly, how did I get how did this gem of an idea move from an interest in learning to starting off a new company? My son is currently at university at Tokyo University, and he started getting really into AI. And we also talk a lot about entrepreneurship in our family generally. And I was saying, I just can't help thinking with what large language models can do, we could really create something incredible in AI. And before I knew it, Cosmo, my eldest son, had decided that, he wanted to give up university and he wanted to start this company with me. So the AI powerhouse behind Iridescent Technology is actually my son. Cosmo's passion for AI is, it's just all consuming for him. So when these large language models, came out, they're obviously appearing at a rapid rate, and some of them are better than others for different things. So for example, Gemini is particularly good because it has a larger number of index pages because it uses Google. So that's why I prefer, Gemini. But these things move so quickly and so fast. So how did we end up sort of, coming together, this idea of, AI and, learning pedagogy? It was really through a conversation on the 4Ds. So we were talking about how potentially, AI could deliver this idea of, discovery, discussion, delivery, and, demonstration, which is really important for any kind of, learning project that you're doing. And how we would deliver that in AI. So Cosmo immediately sort of, got onto, we started off on Claude. We started off with Claude and produced this, the 4Ds. And we were like, yeah, okay, well, that's good. But there are also other elements in there that we're going to need to put in. So for example, going back to Bloom's taxonomy and going back to the areas of interest that make. So that's when we started putting in, prompts in and around Bloom's taxonomy. And then we were like, well, we want to offer pretty much every qualification that anyone can do that is recognized by their national governments. So then we started saying, right, okay, well, how do we feed in via APIs information coming in from things like Ofqual and EFQL, which is the European qualifications body. So feeding that into the model. And so it goes on, and so it goes on. So you're just constantly taking this model, and then what will happen, rather delightfully, is that you'll get another upgraded LLM, and you'll be like, you know what? I think we could actually go faster and cheaper with a different LLM model. So you'll take all of those connections, all of those prompts, and you'll basically put it into another model, and it'll work faster, better, cheaper. So the architecture of the way that we are creating Zavmo is really interesting as well. So obviously you've got the kind of DevOps layer, which makes it goes fast. So concurrently, we know that we can get, at least 500,000 people concurrently using Zavmo when we launch. Not that, at launch we'll need that many, but, in terms of the infrastructure, we've got the DevOps layer. Then you've got the kind of engineering level. Then you've got the prompt engineering level, and then you've got the large language model. So what we're hoping to do once we've launched Zavmo is move into our own large language model, which specifically focuses on understanding how people learn. So that's really kind of our goal. But, we are, somewhere away from that.
Fantastic.
Including funding. We need a quick 500 million in order to do that. But let's get the MVP out there. Let's get people using it, and then go from there.
I don't do much predictions on the show but from what you are describing, Juliette, I think in no time you're gonna have a good traction of people using Zavmo, because the way, and by nature I love everything structured, planned, and clear to me. So I know how I'm gonna go from point A to point B, right? And with the 4Ds you explain, I can see something which is logical, easy to do at the same time. It's of course, like, there's some hard work to do sometimes. We have to do sometimes hard tasks. But as someone, I don't claim myself having huge experience in education or anything by any mean, but the common sense in me says, like, this is something really gonna become big. And I love also one thing, Juliette, and this is what I want to ask you. This spirit of entrepreneurship, and you just said, like, you're doing it with your son also. So how exciting is it the time now for entrepreneurs to be in the age of AI, where really they can do things? And I need, kind of advice from someone who've been in the tech space for more than 20 years, Juliette. I want your point of view on what are the limits that entrepreneurs should be aiming for, more than just putting, a wrapper on top of a, API and just making like chat box or whatever. I want to hear your feedback on that part.
So, Mehmet, I think this is a really interesting debate, and I would love more people to talk about it, because it's something that when I started looking into the economics of the AI space, like, I always, the first question I ask myself is, where's the money, right? Where is the money? Okay. So what we can see at the moment is there's lots and lots of money in, basically having chips and selling chips. So Nvidia stock's going through the roof. It's not clear to me. The large language models, some of them are making money, some of them, aren't making money. And then the application layer, which should come after the large language models, it's not clear to me that any of them are, as you say, anything much more than a wrapper around a large language model, which means that, basically all that happens is the large language model just suck up a whole load of information from the application layer. So Jasper, I think, for me, would be a really good example of that. So Jasper was a writing tool, and it's just not much more than, as you say, a wrapper around, ChatGPT. And then ChatGPT offers that service, and then suddenly Jasper is completely out of business. So I think there is a really, really interesting question, which is, at some point, in order to make this, interesting for application builders, and I would class myself as an application builder, you do need to be able to add a lot more to the large language model, than just a wrapper. And I think for me, where that comes from is a really deep understanding of a vertical industry. So that can either be an applied problem within a corporate, and, to some extent, you could just call that automation, right? And automation, everybody is trying to automate different things within their own companies. But if you have a really, really focused piece of vertical industry understanding, as long as it's complex enough that somebody like a large language model wouldn't really want to get into the weeds of it, then I think you can protect, the application can be delivered and it can be built. For us, because we have, a kind of almost like a lifetime of understanding of how people learn, a lot of kind of psychology behind learning, a lot of psychology about habit forming, a lot of psychology about life design, a lot of, that's what we're trying to bring to the prompt engineering in and around, the AI, and hopefully that will be enough. My prediction, and obviously anyone can have a prediction, right? I mean, I'm not saying it'll be true, but my prediction is that you will end up with large language models, and there'll be a few of them. You don't need that many of them. As I said, we're hopping around from large language model to large language model, depending on how cheap and how good it is. So when new ones come out, we'll just move to prompt engineering to a brand new large language model. So my prediction is that what will happen is that you will continue to have the large language models, and then you'll have these small specialist, language models, like hopefully, we will be producing an Iridescent after Zavmo. So we're trying to produce a large language model called GrandJan. So that is basically where we're going. That will be focused on this specific idea of ensuring that any time you hit a new piece of content, it is delivered in a way that matches your neurodiversity needs. Sorry, that was one thing that I didn't really. So one of the things that we're trying to do is in delivering it as well as ensure that if you are dyslexic, or you do have ADHD, or you do have, visual challenges, or any stuff like that, that it will be displayed in the way that you want it to be. And so, our niche is this idea of kind of delivering new information to the brain in a way that, is habit forming and highly engaging. So that's the way I would see it. But I would love to hear from more entrepreneurs as to why they're not building more really interesting applications on top of large language models. Because I think there is, as you say, I think you've identified a real problem in the value chain stack, which is, where are these applications? Because I don't really see that many. I see exactly what you're seeing.
Yeah, because I have a theory, because, and I can't blame them, at least in the geography where I live, because a lot of people, they think it's okay, let me hop on a bandwagon, right? So now it's AI. Okay, how is the easiest way I can claim that I have an AI powered, company or software, whatever? It's just I use the API of any of the big 3-4 people who provide this. And then, but I tell people, like, hey, you can do that. But guess what? 2 things. To your point, Juliette, you mentioned this about the example of Jasper. After a couple of months, they would decide that they will add this feature that you thought like it's cool, and then you are busted, you're out of business. Or the second thing that might happen is that you have a kind of a, single point of failure, I like to call it, because you are relying only and only on that LLM. And for any reason, if they decide, and don't get me wrong, people, and I have respect for this company, for Google, but Google, there, for example, very famous of killing projects, right? So they can kill, for example, Gemini, like, who knows, let's say. So you need to put this in mind. And and you mentioned it, Juliette, like, you're discovering which LLM, can provide you exactly what you do. And then you're going to build your own one in the future. So you have this, I like, this kind of vision, and all it comes from something you started with. It's a pain. It's a problem that you are trying to solve. And I think this is a debate, Juliette, really, between entrepreneurs currently, and maybe it's an old debate. All of us, we know about it. Are you building a painkiller, or are you building a vitamin product, right? And just, and now I call it a cosmetic product. It's not even a vitamin, because you're just trying to put some makeup that it has AI to just, show it to a VC or an investor that, hey, I have an AI company. Do you want to invest with me? Like, this is my 2 cents only. I would
You have
say.
you have to promise me that you will give me a clip of what you've just said, because I want that clip. I absolutely want that clip of what you've just said about vitamin pills and true pain, because I think you've literally just summed up the problem that the value chain of AI has. It is exactly that. It is that people are really struggling to find application builders. The other thing that I think is really interesting about what you said is, to be honest with you, it's the story of entrepreneurship holistically. It's not just AI, and I'm sure now thinking about it, you probably meant it, more globally than AI. There are a lot of Me Too companies. There are a lot of companies that really aren't focused on pain. They're focused on building, making money or copying another idea, and I think, it would be great to get back to the idea that entrepreneurs built products that, really did solve pain. And because of the pain that they're solving, they were able to, deliver value and get value from that. I think it's a tough old road for entrepreneurs. If I think about my journey in growth engineering, rightly or wrongly, we never took VC money. We basically just did it the old fashioned hard way because we were solving pain. And because we were solving pain, we thought, we could compete. But then, we can compete, but we've never got as big as some of our competitors who have far worse products. It's just that they were given millions and millions of dollars, to basically push into a product that is fundamentally mediocre, and you just think, well, it would be better if we could just focus on, eradicating world problems rather than covering up those world problems with a load of money and potentially, creating products which aren't, as you say, just vitamin pills, just vaporware, they're not real things. It's just, they've had so much money pumped into them that it's not really kind of making the world a better place. I mean, I love that. I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time. But yeah, so interesting. And you must send me that quote. I mean, obviously, if you
yeah. So just one thing I also learned it the hard way, Juliette, and maybe I rarely talk more than my guests on the show, but just because you mentioned this, so for me at some stage I thought, I was fascinated. Oh, look at these guys. They started their company out of Silicon Valley or out of London or out of Dubai or out of Singapore, whatever. And then, look how much money they did. And, I was young, of course, at that time. And okay, I had the itch. I need to build something that makes me money. And then I discovered that actually we have, and this is one of the things I regret, that I should have thought the other way around. How I can impact, people's lives, solving their pain, their problems, whether it's personal, business, whatever, pain, any pain. And then actually, you know what? Once you start to solve the problem, the money will come afterwards. You will be rewarded, after that. And I think this is the, the holy grail of the entrepreneurship journey in total, starting with a end of mind. I like to call it, of course. And regarding what you asked me for, this is recorded, Juliette, of course, but I gotta send you a snippet of that. Now, as we are almost coming to an end, tell me more about the book. What is it about, and when is it expected to be out?
So the book is really a culmination of thoughts with regards to learning theory and how technology can be applied to what we know about how the brain works. So again, going back to your really important point about, are we solving pain? So let's paint a picture of, or let's imagine what a classroom is like. You might have been the kid in the classroom like me, completely confused about what was going on most of the time. And then, in my report, it was could do better, lack of focus, doesn't concentrate, yada, yada, yada. But then I'm the person that, I don't know, might go up to a lecturer or something afterwards and have a really fascinating conversation and being able to engage at a really high level because I'm good at conversation and I'm not unintelligent. I'm just not able to sit still in a classroom. I mean, I still struggle, to sit still. I'm still kind of all over like that. I still have a short-term memory. I still have all of those issues that you have when you're. So what I'm trying to convey in the book is look, we really need to give some thought as to how we are educating ourselves. We know how quickly, AI can take on new information. AI can take on new information in 10 minutes. In the same space it would take a human to learn every single day of its life if it died at 85. So we are talking really quick, be able to assimilate information. So human beings have to be able to stay curious and stay, interested in their future. And so the book is really about saying, hey, look, this is the way the brain works. It's miraculous. It's, it's magical. It's really interesting. We know how humans can gravitate towards curiosity, that we know how they can be engaged. So how can we harness this thing, which it's just a data machine. It just churns, information out. And how can we apply that to our education system in order to ensure that humans can live their best life? I mean, AI should serve, the human race, in order for the human race to basically, have the best life, the most optimal life. And we know that when the brain is firing on all cylinders, we know when it's curious, we know when it's engaged, we know that humans are in flow. And when we are in flow, we love our lives. So let's get AI to basically help us get there. So that's what the book is basically about. The Learning Revolution, it's called. And yeah, I will drop you a DM when it lands, but it should be in and around sort of September time.
Fantastic. Final thing, where people can get in touch and, follow what you do, Juliette.
So yeah, best place is LinkedIn. I am big on LinkedIn. I'm just in the process. Everyone keeps hounding me. Juliette, will you please do day in the life diary on LinkedIn, video vlog? So you heard it here. It's happening. I've got to do it. 10 minutes every day on, or 5 minutes every day on LinkedIn as a blog. So yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. I love to hear from people. So, if anybody's interested in just chatting about the future, I would obviously love to hear from them. So yeah.
Great. I will make sure that I will keep your profile, LinkedIn profile, in the show notes, and of course all the websites for your companies also, Juliette. At the end, really, I would like to thank you a lot for your thought-provoking, ideas that you shared with us, your thought-provoking way of thinking about education, whether, for children or after we become, professionals and we work. So really, I enjoyed the conversation, Juliette, and I appreciate the time. I know it's a busy time for you now because it's in the building phase and getting things out. So I appreciate you took the time to speak to me today. And this is how I end my episodes usually. This is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast by luck, thank you very much for passing by. I hope you enjoyed. If you did so, please subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. We're trying to reach as much people as possible. And if you are one of the people who keep sending me their comments, their suggestions, and questions, please keep doing so. I read all of them. I take everything into consideration. So thank you very much for all your support. And as I say, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button. Share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs. And leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.